But the second thing about JD Vance, did we ever get an explanation for the eyeliner? I have known two types of guys that wear eyeliner. One, you have guys that wear eyeliner. They're usually a fucking blast. It doesn't matter if it's just part of their outfit or they're like performing on stage. If you know a dude that wears eyeliner, there's somebody that's gonna have a good time. That's category one. Category two is the Undertaker. JD Vance is neither the Undertaker nor is he a good time or fun to hang around. He's just like this third category, and it's just really a letdown. It might be actually the worst part of what he's done other than cause the downfall of democracy.
On Trial with Josh Lowry.
Welcome to another episode of On Trial with Josh Lowry, the show where we take one issue and we put it on trial, but it's always more than one issue. Why? That's what us millennials do. We can't focus. Speaking of focus, I don't know about you guys or what was going on your Tuesday. I was in a deposition at work, so I can't like have my phone on me or anything like that, right? Like I'm very focused. I'm working, right? And I come out of my deposition, and the way that a bunch of coworkers were acting, I thought, oh my God, something major happened. At which point I found out that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce had gotten engaged. My wife, this is a big Swiftie. She saw her open for Tim McGraw before, Taylor's Taylor. And the only tour that she did not see was the Eras tour because we couldn't find tickets. And that will probably be the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. I don't think that I was alone in talking to my wife later that night as she was crying for the thousandth time about Taylor getting engaged when I was told this is the happiest day of my life. Taylor getting engaged made me happier than when you proposed to me. Now, if my wife had said that about anybody else, I think I might be bothered. But if anybody's going to sit here and act like an entire generation of people does not have a parasympathetic, did I even say that right? A pseudo relationship, like their Swifties are in a serious relationship, right? Taylor is their best friend. They've known this woman for 20 plus years. So this meant something to them. See, that kind of makes sense. Get emotional about something that you really care about. But what about when you get really emotional about something that we know you don't care about? Like fake outrage, like, I don't know, Cracker Barrel redesigning its logo. For those of you that did not see this past week, in what has to be one of the most embarrassing moments for us as a society in general, there was an enormous uproar over Cracker Barrel. Now, look, I'm a fan of Cracker Barrel. The fact that they use actual maple syrup on those pancakes all day. Their logo, I'll be honest, I could not care less. As long as you got those pancakes, I'm coming. But what they did was there's an old man leaning on a barrel in the Cracker Barrel logo, and they took it out. And they basically just took it down to the words. And conservative America lost their shit. Apparently, taking the cracker out of the Cracker Barrel logo was a step too far for conservative America. Now, the irony is just a few years ago, we had to listen to them lose their shit when, like, the syrup company, Aunt Jemima, they took the woman that was in the picture, right? They took that out, or the Uncle Ben's rice, right? Because they said, hey, this has a negative connotation, right? And conservatives lost their mind. You're trying to change history. You can't take that out. You should be accepting that that's racist. Okay, so you guys I guess you're mad because I don't know, right? Like that was one of those things. Like I think we all looked at it like, hey, we probably shouldn't still be on there in the year 2020, whatever it was, right? But conservatives had to be mad about something, and they made it about race and being too woke and all this stuff, right? But then they get pissed that the old white guy was taken off of the Cracker Barrel thing. And they said, well, this is a woke thing. There's nothing woke about that. Like everybody has modernized their logo. Like go look at all these businesses. Go look at restaurants compared from 50 years ago to now. They look cookie cutter, like just soulless. Like there's literally no reason to be mad about this. You guys just want to get mad when you see a change. And the reason the conservatives do this is it's been trained. For the last 10 years under Trump, they have found every time we get outraged, it fires up our base, it starts a movement, and it creates this entire culture of, oh, we're fighting wokeness, right? That's the whole thing that happened in the comedy world. Trump and JD Vance going on all these podcasts and saying they're going after a First Amendment speech. And go listen to Mark Maron stand up about this. No one was ever coming after your free speech. You were being held accountable for what you were saying. Speaking of, all those conservatives were terrified of cancel culture, but they just try to cancel Cracker Barrel. It's almost like they don't care about cancel culture. They just want to be able to say offensive shit. Might be onto something there. Let's store that one for later. Think about it. But the whole point that I bring up this Cracker Barrel thing is it's this fake outrage that conservatives have been running with and using for well over a decade now, and it served them well. And that is where we're seeing the way they're trying to justify this gerrymander horse shit. For those of you that have not seen, Texas just redistricted in the middle of a decade, which never happens. They did that because literally Trump said we're entitled to 5 more seats. So they split up Houston to try to take away any Democratic vote. Now, the reason originally, I mean, they were just blatant about it. We want more seats, right? Well, at some point they realized that sounds a bit extreme. We're going to start talking about Illinois because they're gerrymandered for Democrats. And so now they're acting like they're outraged. See, here in Indiana, we're about to be gerrymandered too. You can go look at my posts. I called this a while ago. Why? Because if Texas does something, the General Assembly, the Republicans in Indiana, they go running. They have not had an original idea in 20 years. They literally look around and they go, all right, what is the dumbest fucking thing another state is doing? Texas, we're copying it. That's basically how they legislate, right? So it was only a matter of time that they were going to now gerrymander Indiana and try to make it so right now we are split 9 congressional seats, 7 go Republican, 2 go Democrat, pretty much every election, right? Now, it was getting close to 5-3 a few years ago, but the Republicans gerrymandered it to make Victoria Smart safe because she's such a god-awful candidate. They knew they couldn't trust her to win an election on her own. Trump says, okay, now I need you to gerrymander Indiana. I need 2 more seats. And at first, a lot of the Republicans come out against it, right? There's several people, including State Rep Jim Lucas, that say they're against it. We're not going to do it. But like the strong, principled conservatives that the Republicans in our General Assembly are, they change their mind whenever Trump tells them to do something. All of a sudden, all 7 of the congressional Republicans, so the federal ones already elected, come out with like the same statement saying, hey, we got to do this because of Illinois. We got to do this because of Illinois. They gerrymandered first, so we got to do this. We got to fight back. I talked about this a week ago, and I could talk about it till I'm blue in the face. Yes, there's been gerrymander on both sides, but damn, the Republicans have been better at it than the Democrats. The analysis was basically through 2010 to 2020, the Republicans redistricted, like you take all the seats of Republicans gerrymandered, you take all the seats of Democrats gerrymandered. They don't cancel each other out. The Republicans had gerrymandered like an extra 17 seats. Basically, they would have never controlled Congress for a decade based on the votes. But because of their gerrymander, they controlled it like 6 out of those 10 years. Or maybe it was 4, but they shouldn't have had any, right? So they're better at it than us, right? Like if there's a way to cheat, the Republicans are going to be better at it. That's kind of their MO. So yes, the Republicans come out and all of them say, hey, we got to gerrymander Indiana to fight Illinois. And then they start talking about the gerrymanders of Democratic states. And this is the same false outrage that we see with Cracker Barrel, because there was no reason to be upset about Cracker Barrel. They just get upset when there's a change that they're like, hey, we could take this and somehow make this a political issue that benefits us. They did the same thing with gerrymandering. They know both sides have done it and the Republicans have done it better, but they're going to express false outrage about only the Democratic states. They don't say shit about Wisconsin that had one of the most absurd gerrymanders. In Wisconsin, they had a situation where Democrats got over 50% of the vote, and yet Republicans held 5 of the 8 seats. That math ain't mathin'. They gerrymandered. They cheated. It's bad when both sides do it, but they're only expressing outrage when the Democrats do it because they're not actually mad about it. They're trying to take advantage of it. It's outrage. Don't fall for it. But there's another step to the story. Here in Indiana, at least. They haven't yet called a special session to do the redistricting. But let's be honest, we know it's coming, right? And just mark that. If I'm wrong, I'll make a joke about it and we'll move on. But if I'm right, I will bring that up repeatedly. So a bunch of the Republicans in the state General Assembly, there's a lot of shit to keep straight here, guys. We're talking about the redistricting for the federal Congress, for the U.S. Congress, but it's controlled by the state General Assembly. The Republicans have a supermajority in the state General Assembly. So when this first happens, Trump wants more seats. JD Vance comes here and talks to him. And then Charlie Kirk tells them. And Charlie Kirk's like, you better do it or we're going to primary you. I want to be very clear. If there's a single Republican out there that changes their mind because Charlie Kirk scared you, you should be embarrassed to leave the house. You should just go find a bully and hand them your lunch money, give yourself a swirly, because like you're just living out a character in a movie that doesn't stand up for themselves and is terrified of a bully. Except in this case, it's not a bully. It's Charlie Kirk. Like if you looked at him, I haven't seen somebody less menacing since fucking Gumby. All right, look, that's neither here nor there. A bunch of Indiana Republicans came out, and to their credit, all right, I talk more shit than anyone, but you got to give people credit when they do the right thing. They came out and they said, you know what? I'm against redistricting. This is getting ridiculous, right? Some of them flat out said, we've already got 7 seats. Some of them said, hey, we can't start doing this mid-cycle stuff. That's not fair. Some of them said, we don't need it. We can win anyways. Good for them standing up for their principles, because no one changes their mind once they've made a decision on a principle, right? No, like 40 of them went to the White House to get wined and dined by JD Vance to try to talk them into it. First off, I have 2 observations about JD Vance. One, I have never seen someone that more openly lies on camera. Like, if you guys haven't seen it, he's been doing this whole tour where he says they're trying to save rural hospitals because Biden shut them down. It's literally the opposite. Big, beautiful Bill is shutting them down. And he's saying that we're going out to save them when they're literally doing the opposite. It's the most blatant lying I have seen since probably something else he said like a week ago. But the second thing about JD Vance, I know we kind of all just moved on, but did we ever get an explanation for the eyeliner? And I want to be clear. I'm not trying to like cast aspersions or suggest anything here. I am confused because in my life, I have known 2 types of guys that wear eyeliner, and JD Vance fits neither of those categories, right? One, you have guys that wear eyeliner. They're usually a fucking blast. It doesn't matter if it's just part of their outfit or they're like performing on stage. It doesn't matter. Like if you know a dude that wears eyeliner, they're somebody that's gonna have a good time. That's category 1. Category 2 is the Undertaker. And yet JD Vance is neither the Undertaker nor is he a good time or fun to hang around. So he's just like this third category over here. And it's just really a letdown. It's like, it might be actually the worst part of what he's done other than cause the downfall of democracy. Also, that beard. Come on, dude. All right, look, let's get back to business here. So a bunch of the Republicans in Indiana went to DC. Now they're coming back. And it's only a matter of time before they announce that they're going to do the redistricting to try to give 2 more seats to the Republicans in the next midterm. A lot of them are just going to blatantly go back on their statements that they weren't going to do it, or their statements that it wasn't fair. Actually, if you saw Corinne Strait, I love Corinne, and she had a hilarious video just quoting Representative Jim Lucas, who originally said he was a hard no on redistricting, and now he said he's thinking about it. Let me explain something to everyone out there. That is why you use hard to describe yourself sparingly. Because if you say it, you better mean it. Overpromise, underdeliver. That's not a great motto when you're talking about being hard. So look, they're going to do the redistricting. And that's because they want to stay in power. And one of the most effective ways they found to get people to buy into it is the false outrage. The same thing they did with Cracker Barrel is the same thing they do to convince their people of gerrymandering, is the same thing we just saw Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita do as they're trying to lay the groundwork to bring the National Guard into Indiana. There is a dictator, an authoritarian playbook, and you see it clear as day. Trump has an idea, and all of a sudden, all the Republicans spray the same message. He wanted to bring the National Guard into Washington, D.C. under the auspices of fighting crime. Okay, that's a whole nother topic, whole nother issue, because DC, it is under federal jurisdiction, so there's at least, a rational justification. Now, we know that's not why he did it, but what he is doing is getting people used to the idea of armed soldiers walking around the streets of major cities. So now he keeps talking about going into other cities, blue cities, Chicago, LA, he talks about urban areas. And all of a sudden, the other day, back to our false outrage, Attorney General Todd Rokita here in Indiana puts out a tweet calling Indianapolis a cesspool and saying it's dangerous and you can't go anywhere or do anything. First off, Indianapolis is not a cesspool. I've lived in Indiana my whole life. Indianapolis is one of the greatest cities in America. We're the home of so many iconic moments, so many cultural moments, so many historical sports moments. I mean, for the love of God, we have the most famous race in the history of the world. A cesspool, Todd Rokita? Really? See, this is something also I just do not get. There is such a double standard. Look, double standards exist. I can deal with it. I understand why most of them exist, but this one kind of drives me nuts. When a Democrat talks about a rural area, they go so far out of their way not to offend anyone. Go listen to how many senators talk about, well, people are just upset because they want to be able to, with the economic anxiety, it's this, it's that. Republicans just talk shit about cities. They talk shit about urban voters. I mean, Rokita just calls Indianapolis a cesspool. You think that's going to affect how voters think about him at all? No. But if there was a Democrat who was able to win in a rural area and said something bad about any rural area, or could even be interpreted as bad about a rural area, it'd be the end of the world. It would blow up. Why? False outrage. Cracker Barrel. Going right back to it. So yeah, this one is another thing of false outrage, but there's a little bit scarier of a thing about this one than Cracker Barrel. Watch. Republican after Republican in Indiana is going to start saying that Indianapolis is not safe. And look, I know they've been doing this at a lesser level for years. It's easy to make, a city a boogeyman. Is there more violence in a city? Not per capita, actually. You just got more fucking people living in a smaller area. It's kind of obvious, right? But this is different. 7 congressional Republicans came out and said the same thing about having to fight gerrymandering in Illinois to get that unified message, unified false outrage message. Republicans are going to do the same thing now about Indianapolis. They're going to say it's unsafe. You can't walk anywhere, despite the fact that, I don't know about you guys, we go walk around all the time. They're selling out fever games. I guess it's so terrifying that, 17,000 people can go there and watch a fever game, but also don't go there because it's too scary. Speaking of, where does Todd Rokita get off? Like, how does that help business? You know how much support a guy like Todd Rokita gets from the Chamber of Commerce? I can't imagine that him calling the city of Indianapolis a cesspool helps bring business into Indianapolis. Shit. Danny Lopez, the Republican in Carmel, works for the Pacers. He's in marketing. Does it help him to market the Pacers who play in Indianapolis when you have the Attorney General out there calling Indianapolis a cesspool and saying you can't go anywhere without getting shot? I mean, this is somebody that Danny Lopez openly supports. So, he's literally supporting a man that's saying, Indianapolis, you can't come here. It's terrible. It's terrible. It's scary. And then he walks into work and he's like, hey, everybody, I need 20,000 of you to come downtown Indy dozens of times a year. I'm going to keep going back to that one, man. You don't talk about someone's home. You guys have seen all the shirts, Indiana, home. Like, us Hoosiers are proud to be here. And they just go around talking shit about our state's capital. That one gets under my skin. The Republicans now are going to do the same playbook. They're going to get this entire fear-mongering culture to express false outrage about Indy. It's obvious as day. Lay the groundwork. They're all saying it. And then eventually there is a crime, because crime, it's inevitable. I'm not saying you can't try to stop it, but I'm saying in a state of 7 million people, a crime will be committed at some point in the next month. And what will happen is it will use that to say, see, we told you. They've already gotten their voters worked up about it, and they say it so much that the average person that's not really paying that much attention, they're starting to see it. And they're starting to believe it. And then the media, of course, has to both sides everything. So they're going to say, well, there's a crime controversy. Is Indianapolis a cesspool or not? Instead of just reporting the facts. And Trump will use that as an excuse to bring the National Guard into Indianapolis. So now people get used to the National Guard just roaming around. And look, I feel bad. I'm sure almost all of the people that signed up to be in the military, the National Guard, they did it to serve their country, right? So, I mean, you saw the guys the National Guard guys having to go pick up trash in Washington, D.C. You think that's what they signed up for? Here's my concern. With Pete Hegseth as the Secretary of the Department of Defense, he has been so openly MAGA and getting rid of anyone that he calls woke. I think we need to be seriously concerned that he's stacking the military with Trump supporters. And I hate that that's like one of the few things in America that we had that we said, you know what, we're not going to partisanize the military. They protect us. They're willing to put their lives on the line. Both parties were going to support those soldiers. But Trump is throwing it out the window. And that eventually has to add up. So now we're in a place where we're having elections in 2026. The midterms almost always go bad for the incumbent president. So just by traditional patterns, Democrats are going to take over the House in 2026. But Trump, he can't lose power. He needs power. So he needs to rig the election. But he's going about it a totally different way than before because he tried to do it after the fact. He's going to do it before. He's stacking the deck through gerrymandering. The Republicans are basically making an extra 10 seats Republican that wouldn't have been otherwise. And now he's laying the groundwork to have the National Guard in blue cities all over America. That's going to be used to deter votes, whether it's just the idea of armed soldiers walking around or something more nefarious that Trump and Hegseth have planned. And do we have any reason to believe they wouldn't? Because now we've seen this false outrage used to justify things so many times from the Republicans. They did it with Cracker Barrel. They did it with redistricting. They did it to get soldiers in cities. Before the 2026 election, they will come out with some other type of unified messaging to create false outrage, to have some reason that the military that's stationed in blue cities only has to do something that'll stop people from voting. This isn't just for Democrats. This is for all Americans. We got to be eyes wide open. We got to pay attention. And this isn't just something like you got to be aware. In 2026, if you want to ever have a chance, maybe have our last chance at democracy. I know this sounds alarmist, but if you're not paying attention, Trump has already ran over all kinds of railroads for democracy that can't go back in a bottle, like the genie's out. There are so many things that are now, whoever is in charge basically has unilateral power to do whatever the hell they want because Trump ran over the safeguards and now everyone knows they're not there. The only true pushback is the Congress. This Congress won't push back on anything. We have to flip the Congress in 2026 to reject this dictatorship, to reject the cutting of health care, to reject creating a billionaire class that pays nothing but gets everything, to reject this just anti-science, anti-medicine, anti-fact administration. We got a chance in 2026, but if the Republicans win, it's out the window. So we got to make sure that you're registered to vote. You got to make sure your registration's up to date. You got to dot every I, cross every T. You got to make a plan to vote. You got to make sure everybody you know has a plan to vote. And I'm being serious about this. Whatever the hoops you have to jump through to vote, you better find a way to do it. Because the idea that, grab my ID and run there, if there's any reason they can prevent you from voting, they're going to do it. I know a lot of times people say I don't mean to sound alarmist, but I mean to sound alarmist. This is not false outrage. This is not Cracker Barrel. Reason we've gotten so close to authoritarianism, if we're not already there, was the people that could have stopped it only cared about clinging to their power. You want an example? The Republicans that are doing this redistricting in Indiana. The ones going out and screaming this false outrage. 10 years ago, they would have lost their minds at the idea of the military coming into a city. 10 years ago, they would have lost their mind at the idea of a mid-decade redistricting. But they have found the only thing they want is to stay in power. They want to keep living off the taxpayer dime. They want to keep this power. And right now for them, the best way to keep that power is to be loyal to a dictator. Now it's Trump. Tomorrow it'll be Putin. They don't care. I mean, shit. 2020, they lose an election. They try to overthrow the government. They file fake lawsuits. You got people making false claims that they know are false. You saw the Fox News stuff, right? The Dominion sued them. They had to pay out all that money. And that's the thing. The same reason that these Republicans are suddenly flipping their votes on redistricting is the same reason that these Republicans are all of a sudden okay with the military coming into the city. It's the same reason these Republicans claim that there was a fake false election in 2020. It's the same reason they do damn near everything so they can stay in power. See, there's a lot of voters out there. It is about Trump. I tell you right now, and you all know that I'm telling the truth. For most of these Republicans in elected office, right now the loyalty is to Trump because that keeps them in office. That's why they changed their views. They were afraid to get primaried. But if Trump came and changed his view today, they changed their view. If Trump's gone tomorrow, whoever's next, they'll be loyal to. Because the Republican Party exists to maintain power, not to advance any type of cause. There are some people that figured out how to jump in and take care of that and get a cause done that they want. I mean, Elon Musk used it to chop up the government. Stephen Miller uses it to be racist. By the way, did you guys see that rant that he went on the other day? He went on this rant about like inner cities and just, it is the most racist thing I've ever heard without someone actually using a racial epithet. That was impressive. I mean, in the most disgusting way possible. But generally, when he talks, it's the most disgusting way possible. So straight, fitting his character. But guys, I want us to be aware, but more important, I want us to be prepared. See, usually in election years, we have to do a bunch of voter registration, right? Hey, let's get the people that aren't registered to vote and get them registered to vote. In 2026, man, we're going to have to do voter confirmation. I don't even know what we're going to call it, but we got to make sure that people know how to vote. And I mean that in the most realistic way. What ID do I need? Where do I go? Is my ID good enough? Does it match? Did they kick me off the rolls at some point? No, it sucks that we have to do that. You wouldn't have to do that in a functioning democracy, but we can talk about should be's all time, all day. Be prepared, guys. The next year and a half is going to be rough, but what we're fighting for is worth it because we're not fighting over something false. We're not fighting over some false outrage, something we made up. We're fighting for people's health care. We're fighting for people's rights. We're fighting to help out people that need help. We're fighting to literally save lives, research, medicine, funding, you name it. We're fighting for it in 2026. But it's going to take all of us and it's going to take the whole year. Get ready. Saddle up. We're not going to go down without a fight. I don't know about you, but I'm hungry. I think I'm going to go get some Cracker Barrel. Some Cracker Barrel sounds good to a cracker right now.
On Trial with Josh Lowry.